Twice this semester I need to videotape me for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then it goes to other students in class and we evaluate and give each other ideas on how to improve our instructional techniques. So, should be here videotaping me, if you don't mind. So we're going to start with what the sub did with you guys on Friday. It's not exactly what I had planned, but I didn't know that we had a sub that could do what he did, so it works fine. We had subs for the rest previously that wouldn't do any teaching with you guys at all, talk to you at all. So the assignment was on the board said to, don't worry, you're not doing this assignment, I just want to point out, the board said in-class assignment due at the end of period, and then the little slip of paper said, pick one of these poems from the end to do this analysis of. These ones would work great, but you pick it. Some of the assignment, but I'm fine because I don't got graded anyway. So life's good. And I'm thrilled that he covered symbolism in that poem.
I don't know, if we actually tried and wrote the paper.
I'll give you extra credit.
Okay.
How many of you did that? How many actually wrote the paper? 5. All right, 6. Okay, so everybody who actually wrote the paper, you can turn it in, and I'll go through it with you and give you extra credit because that's awesome. And all I heard was they didn't do anything. So the people who came in the first period, said they didn't do anything and nothing to do. So that's great. I'm glad you did it.
Well, we just
it was supposed
you were giving assignments.
Yeah, it was supposed to be due at the end of the period, and I didn't have any on the desk, so there's 2 reasons why. But yeah, I'll give you extra credit for that. So first, I graded all the essays that came in, and this is the rubric I used. All essays, in-class essays, or essays that you take home, even if they're short, like I expect you to write this in 45-minute type essay, require an intro, a thesis, transitions, and conclusion, and works cited. Okay, so if your essay that you turned in on comparing the 2 roads is missing some of these elements, then I gave you 25 to 30. So that's not when and all this is open to revision. So if you want to revise that and put a thesis in and turn it back in, fine. I just ask that you staple that to the draft I wrote all over, because once again, I didn't photocopy any of the comments that I made on your papers. So if you will staple that to your paper, what I wrote all over and your revision, and then we both have a dialogue going on, what you fixed and what I thought you should fix, and that's good. And so obviously, if you're used to see a thesis, that's hopefully a 15-minute maximum assignment, right? There's a number of you that explained the poems with somewhat okay structure, but you didn't use any proof from the poem. So you summarized the poem, like in The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost, it's about this journey, and he has to choose between the roads, and he chooses this, and that shows that there's choices in life. So I'm not saying that the way you interpret it is right or wrong, but you have all these, whatever it is that we're doing with poetry, you have to use the words from the poem. Now you can summarize in your conclusion after you've proofed it all, or you can summarize in your introduction, but you cannot summarize an analysis of a poem. You have to use words from the poem. So these people who need proof from their poem, just get some words from your poem, get that into those paragraphs, fix whatever structure is missing, and put that in. And we're actually going to go through proof of the poem with A Road Not Taken in class today, so you can put those words on the side of your paragraphs that you want to add in, and then so you're going to be doing the rewrites and fix your papers in class today. Those of you who are missing proof and structure, so those are the people who turned in 1 paragraph with a summary of 2 of them within 5 sentences. I give you 15 points because because you did something, but you didn't prove with any analysis. You didn't do any analysis. So basically, what you turned in could be your conclusion. It would be an excellent conclusion, but it didn't. So there's some work to do on those for these guys. And then there's a couple people who just didn't do the assignment at all. Either they didn't turn something in, or what they did turn in was not there. And those people can talk to me about it. I am going over structure, so that should be clear on your paper what structure you're missing. But if you have any questions on that, one-on-one with me outside class would be great. So just talk to me about when you can come in. If you're having trouble, what is a thesis? then just chat with me and we'll work through that. You're welcome to use those templates for thesis that we covered last semester in Writing 101. If you use the template for this thesis, you're golden. But if you just flew right into your analysis without telling people what the paper's about, you're missing your thesis. There was a couple other people who may need to talk to me because their vocabulary usage is incorrect. I'd still like to cover that outside class. The difference between prose and poem, the idea of allusion versus symbolism, that sort of thing. And I wrote on your paper that there's a vocabulary issue. So you can talk to me about that. And yes, you have to use this vocabulary in your paper. Okay, so what I want you to do is open the Road Not Taken up. What page is that on? Someone remember what you're talking? 633. And I want you to find, I'm going to pass out your papers. I want you to pass out your, I'm going to pass out your papers, and what I want you to do is find the exact words in the poem that prove what you're telling me. Okay, so those of you specifically, those of you who believe one road is way more traveled than the other, you have to put those words here. On the side of your paper, that would be helpful, especially if you're planning on revising. And those of you who think the roads are the same, you have to prove that proof here. Keelan? What page is it? 633? Right? 633. Okay, so I'm passing out your papers. And then I'm walking around with it. You can talk to each other about what proof you're using. And then I want you to write it on the board. So write it on your paper, and then we'll get all the proof on the board, and we'll talk about it as a class. Whatever your paper, what you say in your paper, you just need to find words that prove that. I'll send you later shortly.
How much did you write for that?
Oh, yeah. Those of you that got 20, you're just lucky the words to prove it. I didn't take that one.
This is the one I wrote.
This is ML literature. But I didn't take points off of that.
Probably hard to find it.
Oh, no, I'm just talking to her about it. I'll be fine.
Oh, yeah, no, you don't. Because, if you don't see what I'm trying to say, that's that.
Oh, no, I know. I was just,
I need to work on communication better.
I tried to do
So. Okay. And you two have to go turn in, right? Certainly need email again. You know the thing that was just announced on the, there was an announcement at 10 after that the servers weren't working good. And so Hannah emailed me that she turned it in, and I didn't get it, so she turned it in. She'll send it to me. So. But she should. Really, no one would.
I mean, I emailed the one we were talking about in the lunch yesterday.
Pardon me?
Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can't get into the emails at all. And so I'm just saying there was a district server communication issue. So
I don't. Oh, well, just a little later. Yeah. At some point, you're like, maybe I should use Gmail here. Really? You should put the whole poem in there? No, not the whole poem. It's hard to talk about.
Maybe just like flash or that. Oh, it's like email.
Did I email it? Yeah, response to that is where you want to put it or this.
Thank you.
Must email me.
I did?
Did you email me this one?
No, you just write it. These guys turned it in her email. So
What were we supposed to do about this?
I forgot my God.
And also, can I come in and lunch?
Absolutely.
And then, also I need to show you my journal stuff.
Okay, we can do that. You're not going to do it right now. But I definitely, I feel like she's going to write her home and then here, just like when they were talking about it, then they could do their extra credit. Like, you have to know the paragraph. I guess that's my whole thing. Well, I know, that's all I can do. Pages 30, okay.
What do you speech?
Now that you're starting to get it there, good. I'm not really sure when we're starting.
All right, so we'll do it. So the feedback I'm getting is that individually groups are not following what to do. Is that correct? So I have 3 groups who say they don't know what they're doing. So we're going to try to do this as a class. Okay, so several papers say one road is way more traveled than the other. So take the road less traveled. Can you raise your hand if that's the position that your paper's taking? Is that wrong? No one has that?
Not like.
So, all of you agree the roads are the same? Okay, back to the other question. How many of you are writing a paper that says that one is well-traveled, one is not? Raise your hand, please. Okay, so as a class, we're looking for the words specifically in the poem that support that point of view. So, two roads diverge in the yellow wood. So far, they're the same, right? I'm sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it met in the undergrowth. So this one is so you're saying the undergrowth shows not,
Shows that they're different.
shows that, okay, so undergrowth. Oh, I wrote growth.
And then it goes on the next one.
Undergrowth. So, yeah, I'll get you right after. So this one says, you're saying that one road's more traveled because this one disappears into undergrowth. And you guys can visualize that, all of you hikers, that there's a trail that's not so well traveled, and like, especially the Forest Service roads now that they're not maintaining, trees are starting to take over. So there's a trail that just disappears in undergrowth. Okay? So, going on a little further. Then took the other as just as fair. Okay, what does the word as just as fair mean? What are we talking about fair? Fair is the same? Just the same? Does anybody think that just as fair means they're different?
I was going to say you're going to look at them the same.
So you're saying that they both look just as fair? Like they're
No,
just this one line. I was just asking which way, what is most support for you.
Like they both do the same thing.
So I took the other. This took the other as just as fair. So yeah.
So he's going to look at them fairly, I think. Like, he'll look at them the same.
So I'm going to write just,
Like he's not
I'm just
gonna
going to write
judge
fair
them.
here. Fair. And so one is evaluate them equally. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? I actually, it's like,
put it on either one yet.
Evaluate equally. What's another way that fair might be used here besides evaluate equally? They look the same? Look the same. Okay, so some of you might say that fair shows that I'm going to look at them the same and judge them equally. Some of you say they look the same. So those of you that the roads are the same would want fair over here, correct? And those of you who want to prove that one's more traveled, you would use fair to say that he was looking at them equally, but it doesn't prove one's more traveled. Okay, so I can't put fair up here as proof one's more traveled. But you might have to explain in your paper, being these people are using fair as proof, you might have to argue with them to prove your point. Okay, so in which case, so you need to know that there's some people in the room take it the roads are the, I put this up here because some people are taking the roads are the same, and some people aren't. You didn't need to know that when you wrote your first draft. If you had put proof in your poem, I would ask you to be aware of the other arguments. But now that we're revising, I need you to be aware that some people are taking fair to mean they look the same. And having perhaps the better claim. What does that mean? So Brody says that means that the roads are different. So because one has a better claim. So because how can you have the word claim? How can you have the word better unless one's different than the other? Okay? Because it was grassy and wanted wear. So you have a path that's grassy and wants wear. What does that look like? Does it look like people are walking on it all the time if it's grassy and wants wear? Like so this one's grassy, wants wear. And what was the other path? Undergrowth, you guys remember? Undergrowth. So you've got one path that is grassy because people have not been walking on it and it wants wear. And you've got another path where the undergrowth eats off the trail so you can't see it. So the people who are saying the roads are the same, they're both not traveled, have proof that they're both not traveled. So those of you who say that one road is more traveled, somehow you're going to have to explain how the undergrowth on one and the other covered in grass and hasn't been walked on make them different roads. So, there's two paths. I could draw a picture. There's two paths. Here you are standing here. Let's do a different color. You have a road. Here's the path. Here's the narrator. By the way, this is not, don't call him Robert Frost. It's a narrator. We don't know if Robert Frost, is a poet. Unless he says, I, Robert Frost, it's a protagonist of some kind. So you got a narrator, and he has to choose between this road and this road. This one has undergrowth. Undergrowth. It specifically says, I looked down as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. So now there's all these trees and things so that you can't see the trail. Okay? So it is bent into the undergrowth. He didn't say it bent into the overgrowth. Undergrowth is stuff on the ground coming up, correct? How many of you guys are scientists? Would you call undergrowth the ferns and grass and mushrooms? And overgrowth would be a canopy of trees. So this is bent into undergrowth. And this one is grassy and wants wear. No one's walked on it. So, guys, you hikers that go hiking and you look at a path and it's covered in grass, maybe 1 foot high grass. It's a trail, it's a road, maybe a Forest Service road, and the grass is growing all over it. So it's covered in grass. There's no open path. It's covered in grass. So for those of you that are saying this poem is more traveled, you've got to find proof in your poem with the words, the specific words. Undergrowth and once where proves that they're the same. Yours says there's a better claim, and the word difference. That might actually be that's in the poem, right? Difference. That made all the difference. So you might be able to prove that he chose a road that's less traveled, because a lot of you are saying that this poem proves that you shouldn't follow the crowd. That was word for word on one of the papers. This poem proves you should not follow the crowd. If you're going to use that word, proves